now is the time to find out that if Owen Farrell gets injured in the first game of the World Cup, now is the time to find out what you do.
Hello, we're back. Get Farrell out and get Smith in. London Irish are a top four side. France are basically going to win the Six Nations and get Ealing in the Premiership. That's all to come on this week's episode of the Rock and Roll podcast. It's just Siri's trying to talk to me. It's just Harry and I to start with because Joe's trying to connect to his internet in 2021, I should say. So we'll run through some Premiership before we'll save the Six Nations chat until he joins. So Friday night we had Bristol Sale putting down a marker against Bristol without Luatua, Randrandra, Sheedy, Randall, a lot of their core players, but just didn't really get firing. Sale look with Alex Sanderson anyway, defensively very minded, which is what he was good at Sale. I think, and we'll talk a lot about England later on, but he's come out and said Eddie Jones needs to start picking mile and yard. Maybe not. I mean, he's scoring tries, which is more than Watson and May are doing. So, I mean, that's what he's going for him. But Sale look pretty good. They've got just some big ball carriers, got a good line out. Sam James and Luke James are good. Sale are going to be in the top two, probably.
Yeah, very possibly. They've got the deepest squad in the league. They've got a good coach. It's not like they were in terrible form when Diamond left, so it's not like they need to recover at all. I think they're certainly top four, and then I think the specific point sort of place they end up in the top four will probably come down to form in the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks of the season when everyone's got all of their players and the ground's a bit better. Sort of accumulation of tries effectively. But yeah, looking good.
Yeah, it was not, as I say, I think it was Luke James scored the main sort of the decisive blow towards the end of the game. It was a nice finish in the end. I can't remember too much from it, to be honest. It was Johan Lloyd not got exposed, I think it's the wrong word, but again, he's still very young. There's a lot of people going, get him in the Welsh team. He's still 2 years away, I think, from being an established international anyway. And I think Callum Sheedy's better than him at the moment anyway. But again, good exposure, but again, he lacked a little bit of, I think, maybe O'Connor at 12 might have been a bit better than O'Connor at 13 with Lowe and Lloyd in there. Because see how Pietau's doing one thing and one thing only, and that's crashing. But again, it's a second-rate Bristol team. Sale did what they needed to do. Good win for Sale. Saturday was where we had most of the games. Northampton put in a decent first half against Wasps, and Wasps decided they had to play some rugby in the second half and brought it back to something semi-respectable. Boyd wasn't very happy with Northampton in the second half, but from what I looked at it, they didn't particularly look that great in the second half. Sean Arundel scored again for them. Trying to think back from the highlight. I've only seen the highlights of those. Naira got a try. Matavesi got a try from a line out.
Yeah, 22-0 at half-time, and then to Saints, and then 2 yellow cards. Well, Wasps had 2 yellow cards in the first half.
Yeah.
Conceded 22 points, and then Saints had 2 in the second half, managed to concede only 17, which I suppose might be impressive. I haven't watched the highlights of that, so I don't know.
I was going to say, just from a Wasps point of view, I think it's really difficult to see, and we'll talk about teams in a moment, but like their Six Nations is going to have a significant impact on them. I think they're missing some big names in there. Like a dog who's been on fire, Launchbury's injured, and we talked about those before. So we don't need to remake the same points, but they've got. I'm trying to think they've got next week. Actually, they're playing Worcester on Sunday, so you'd expect them to beat Worcester because Worcester at the moment are really struggling. So they might come back to form there, but I think the Six Nations is going to have an impact on them. They will bounce back naturally with those players in there, but yeah, not 2 weeks on a row, league losses.
They also have a lot of players out injured.
Yeah.
They've got certainly a full starting 15 that's effectively as good as the one that played this weekend, plus a couple of extras who were unavailable this weekend, both through England and injury. So there's room to improve.
Yeah, as I say, Northampton, I wouldn't read too much into Northampton as well, being high as they are. Not saying they're playing bad. They've won 2 games in a row, which is fine. They've beaten a very dejected Gloucester team and a weakened Wasps team, so I wouldn't get too carried away. So, but they are getting better. They were a lot better than they were, I'd say, about 6 months ago. So I'd say they're definitely destined for a top 8 finish. Bath have lost again, though. And they've lost comfortably at home to Quins. Quins again looking good. Don Brandt scored a nice try. Danny Kerr got another one. Matavesi in the build-up to that got yellow carded, which he owned up to. Good decision from Max Crosswell Keys. Don Morris also scored, and then you've got, in response, Tom Dunn scored a pushover and De Glanville got one back. But again, still with this Bath team, I say it again, like you've got Cockanasaga, Spencer. Yeah, it's still probably the weaker Bath lineup than I've seen. But again, they're playing with a team that there's talk of Stuart Hooper's lost the dressing room. Don't know. They looked a bit abject. They didn't, from the highlights, you got Quins look comfortable. Quins are on good form. Smith's kicking goals, controlling the ship.
Yeah, back to some really lovely, fluid Quins tries, offloads, and passes to pass out of the tackle. The Harlequins are all right. The structural stuff is still weird. The circumstances of Gustard's leaving, etc. But on the pitch, they're still more than capable, which is good.
Leicester got back to winning ways. They beat Worcester 41-24. A lot of driving mauls there. Just Worcester can't defend a driving maul for their life at the moment. Montoya got 2 tries from being on the back of a maul. Visa got 2 as well, and Young's got another one off the maul. Didn't look particularly pretty from that standpoint as Joe Trickey enters the room. He's turned up at the great time. We're about to talk about Gloucester and Irish after this, so strap yourself in. Yeah, Worcester are going to struggle. I think Worcester are going to be in that bottom 3 with Gloucester and Bath at the moment. Not particularly pretty reading for Worcester, but if they can defend a wall, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
But good for Montoya as well. That's a great pickup for Leicester. Really good. Now to bring on to my statement about that at the start of the pod. Obviously, Joe's not seen this, so it'll be interesting to see his reaction. London Irish are going to be in the top 4 this year. And I'm going to explain my rationale. Unfortunately, we have lost Sokobi Kepu today for personal reasons. And I genuinely, on one side, this is going to sound harsh in a moment, but on personal side, he's been great for Irish to an extent. And I really hope, whatever his personal reasons are, and hope his family is okay. In another way, I'm quite pleased he's off our books because he played 30 minutes on the weekend and he went off again. I haven't seen him go beyond 40 minutes. He came back on and he makes another difference. Absolutely destroyed the Gloucester scrum. Him and Will McGoldrick-Clark. If you want an England prop at the moment, McGoldrick-Clark is going to be on the radar in the next few months. I genuinely believe that. He put Jamal, I think, was it Jamal Ford Robinson? No, it was Knight. Just put Knight on absolute toast and then Baldwin. But we'll get into that in a moment. So a few names to throw out as for his Kepu's replacement. I quite like Tyro Lomax. Come on. Let's get Tyro Lomax to the Premiership, please.
Busy with Super Rugby.
When he's finished Super Rugby, or I quite fancy Ollie Jaeger.
Again, busy with Super Rugby and the All Blacks. Maybe.
But I can dream. But honestly, on a generally serious note, thank you, Sakapi, for your work. You're an absolute legend. 100 caps. You do, for Australia, you do now bring our caps in the front row down a little bit. But Irish could go and get a cheaper prop who's going to last more than 60 minutes, which we're going to need because we're going to be in the top 4.
Yeah. Well, Charatama is not bad.
Class. So much better than he was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But
he'll be
Bad news to start with. Obviously, I don't know what I was watching for the first 5 minutes. Tricky, have you seen any of this game, by the way?
Which one?
The Gloucester-Irish game.
No, I watched the Six Nations games and that was it.
Oh, I was all over this. It was like watching Super Rugby. Irish scored after 30 seconds, got the next restart, Gloucester scored from the restart. I'm like, this is going to be 50 points to 40. Poor old Coleman, though, who's done his calf. Oh, 30 seconds on, he's charged down a kick.
Really?
He's blown his calf trying to chase after it. And then Cowan's gone over, and I was like, oh, God, please don't tell me he's going to be out for a while. But I think generally, Irish could push ourselves. I think top four is a bit clickbaity. But you never know. I think top six, though, is generally within our reach at the moment. We've not lost in 4. We've beaten Gloucester, admittedly struggling. But Gloucester, with Billy Twelvetrees at 10, actually looked good in attack. They just still with no confidence. Again, they played the wide, play with width, and they were making line breaks. They stopped playing with width, and then Irish just kicked the penalties and played in the right areas. But yeah, Ollie Hassel-Collins, get him in the England team. Quality. Great finish. Broke the line. Creevy again. Cowan. Oh, Berryman, you'll like the Cowan second try. Line out maul. Stimmons off the top. It's gone down to Cowan. Peel inside to Tuasui. Tuasui smashed. I think it might have been Hines. Inside ball to Cowan. Over. Beautiful. Irish top six. We'll replace Kepu. We'll get Naholo on the pitch. top six. Gloucester, I'm going to be positive about Gloucester. Alex Craig scored some tries. Atkinson actually was generally very good.
He's always super.
He was very, very good. His try was excellent. He was scaring me a little bit by how much he was creating. But again, yeah.
Well, I think that's the problem, isn't it? There's always a couple of positives in there, but we still lose the game. So, as I said before,
You got 2 points then.
Yeah, I mean, there's something, but it's just, I think that it's just that mentality. It's so hard to get out of that losing mentality, and their heads are down clearly. So it's so hard to change that and turn that around. Or you just need to get a win, find a way to win somehow.
I think it was a minor point as well, but Billy Twelvetrees, they got a penalty. I think, was it a penalty? No, Alex Craig scored his second try, and they went. I think it was the conversion. No, it might have been a penalty. No, it was a penalty. They got a penalty to kick it within 7, but it was literally in front of the post or a slight angle to the left. He could have easily booted it in 20 seconds, and they could have restarted and had about 2 minutes to attack. He decided to take the whole minute, and then Irish went long, as you should from a kick when you're trying to defend, and he just turned around and booted it off the pitch.
Oh, right.
And I was like, you've got to at least try.
Yeah.
Like, that game was there for the taking. Irish made a lot more mistakes than they did against Newcastle. They weren't as fluid. They still in the forwards, though, just that line out at the moment is just a thing of beauty. I know we always a bit critical of Irish signing Simmons and Coleman, but Simmons, it's brilliant watching an international level second row. I didn't think I'd realised until I saw him play at club level how good he is. He's superb in the air. He's so quick off the ground for his age as well. He gets off the ground, he takes everything in the air, sets everything up. He's superb. This Irish team is like, you've got a back row, you've got a back three of Part and Loader and Hassel-Collins. With if they can pay them the right money, they'll stay. Thank God, unless they'll go to Bath. Please don't. But you could build a team around that. Habertine was back. Rona didn't see a lot of the ball this week, but Jackson, and we'll come on to Ireland later. We'll come back to Paddy Jackson later on. But yeah, Irish are the top 4. Will McGodrick-Clark, England, a couple of months' time. You heard it here first. Finally, just a quick one. Newcastle lost to Exeter, who are going to lose to Irish next week. I'm very bored about Irish.
Maybe.
Extra very weak. And Alex Cuthbert, on a real positive note, Alex Cuthbert, who's had massive injury issues, scored a lovely try. Vintage Alex Cuthbert, Wales 2013 maybe, when they beat England in Cardiff. that lovely sidestep he done. Lions were the Alex Cuthbert performance. Brilliant. Again, we'll talk about wing. No, maybe not. No, when he played for the Lions, Alex Cuthbert, not saying he's going to get anywhere near the Lions. He wouldn't even get in the Italy team at the moment, probably. But lovely finish. Someone as well, which I'll probably talk about the England team in a moment. Tom O'Flaherty was superb again. He's becoming one of my favourite players in the Premiership at the moment. Simmons was good. Line out for Exeter struggled. But Yendall should have been red carded. He shouldered McGuigan in the face, and McGuigan went up for a HIA. Didn't even check it. It's the most obvious thing in the world. Should have been a red card. But Munipola's quite interesting. Do you want to talk about that quickly? Apparently, he signed a 2-year extension at Newcastle, but he's going to Grenoble, so he's going to play 1 week in the top 4 in Pro D2, 1 week in the Premiership. It looks like.
Respect the hustle.
Mm.
And no, in all seriousness, there's been some miscommunication there, I think, or so it's going to get quite messy. It's not a dissimilar situation to the Rohan Jansi van Rensburg deal, where both Gloucester and Sale thought they'd agreed to sign him, and the other didn't know, or maybe didn't quite ask the appropriate questions to find out whether he'd signed with. I think it was that Gloucester hadn't made sure that he hadn't already signed for Sale. I think that's right. Anyway, sounds like, because there were rumours. I remember us talking about rumours of Munipolo going to Grenoble, and you saying sounded a bit weird a couple of weeks ago.
It was a weird thing because, again, they're in Pro D2, so why would he go from playing in the Premiership at Newcastle as well? Like, you look at this Newcastle team, he's probably one of their highest paid players because, like, well, he's up there.
So. No, I wouldn't think so.
Really?
He was at Gloucester not long ago, so he's only on a short-term contract.
He was on a short-term loan at Gloucester from Newcastle. They let him out. They let him
go. Like, in all seriousness, what's his, in the nicest possible way, what's his bargaining position? He's quite good, but
they use him so much though, mate. They used him he's their main ball. He was their main ball carrier on the weekend. He was in the bloody back line at points. That was more late. There was a brilliant bit from this game. It was absolutely brilliant. It was like 6 kicks in a row from it was Cordero who was on at the time, and Hodgson. It was just going back and forth, back and forth. Munipola stood on the 10-meter line for generally all those kicks. He didn't move. You could just see him on the bottom, just go, nope. And then all of a sudden he just jumps into action and takes a huge carry. So
yeah, but like there's not a big market for that player. As effective as he is in this Newcastle system, I don't think there's not a big market for it. Maybe there is, apparently.
I'm looking at this team though. Sorry, I'm just thinking. I don't know who's their most paid player here. So this is the team that started against
Newcastle.
Exeter. So you got Davidson, McGuigan, Munipola, Peterson, Fuser, Robinson, John Hardy, Philip van der Vault, Schroeder, Conan, Stevenson, Owen, Matthias Orlando, Wathaka Koko, and definitely got that wrong, and Hodgson, Joel Hodgson. So Matthias Orlando is probably going to be on.
Orlando would be a
got to be a marquee player, surely. There,
marquee.
He's definitely worth it. Sorry to interrupt you very quickly. He is seriously worth the money. He might actually keep them. I think from the last 2 results against Irish and Exeter, Newcastle aren't going to be where they are at the moment. They're going to drop. They won't drop into the bottom because they've got just amount in there, but he will keep them up there because of what he can do. He's almost too good for the players outside of him, to be honest, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, I don't understand who is their big. Oh, obviously you got Wilson and Graham must be on. Wilson especially will definitely be on money there.
Wilson, Graham, Radwan. Radwan would have been on a deal where his salary would have been cut for the championship and then with a percentage increase for when they get promoted. Because otherwise, I don't know why he would stay.
Because they lost Kibarigi the same year, didn't they? So obviously he's just taken Kibarigi's salary.
Well, yeah, they would have budgeted for we'll keep one of them and not keep the other. Flood won't be cheap.
No, he'd be on a few, wouldn't he? He'd be on his last contract as well, wouldn't he?
Obviously, won't be very expensive, but he's a fly half. He's played for England.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
What would they do without him?
Yeah, they probably would be where they were at the start of the year anyway.
Yeah. But no, Orlando's been great for them. I think all of these, I mean, not terribly surprisingly, but all of these Jaguares players, wherever they've landed, have had a really good impact. It's not good for rugby as a whole, but the sort of, if you were placing Jaguares players in the teams that most needed them, it wouldn't look very different to how it's ended up, which is slightly encouraging for rugby's sort of the ecosystem of the transfer market, at least. Although maybe Carreras, would you have put him at Gloucester? But either way, the majority
of them now.
Well, yes, that's true. But the majority of them, they've gone somewhere useful and are going to have a good couple of years.
Well, now Tricky's joined us. We'll get into some Six Nations, shall we? And again, Tricky missed a statement at the start. My first opening line, Tricky, was Farrell out, get Smith in. Following Sam Smith, the Rugby Pass commentator, who said Farrell was the 8th choice fly half. So while we start with that, which of the 8th fly halves above him then? Who would be there? Simmons, Ford,
Umunga.
Don't
know who's in this.
Surely, Charlie. That means Charlie Atkinson's ahead of him.
Who else is there?
Marcus Smith, Josh Ford, Joe Simmons, Charlie Atkins, Umunga. That's 6. Toby Flood.
That's what I just said as well, jokingly.
Who else is there? Come on. Billy Searle? Down at Worcester?
Maybe.
I mean, he's currently had more matches. No, on all serious note. So my point really, and again, we can take this and however you want to take it. I don't want us to sit on here and go, we can literally slag off England because they were rubbish. Everyone else has done that. Clive Woodward said it. Johnson said it. Everyone said it. But what they haven't done is gone, well, how do you counteract it, and who is going to come in and make a difference? So do we want to look more at solutions as opposed to just going around and do what everyone else is going to do, which go, oh, England didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't do that. Could we talk about that in the chat? Did you want to talk about solutions of players we want to bring in and a potential 15 for Italy? Or did you want to say something on England?
It's worth working out what the issues are. It's worth sort of isolating a list of issues to then say how we think we can solve them, I think.
So we start with Saracens then, because my thing was, right, so Saracens played Ealing 3 weeks ago. Billy Vunipola played. Why on earth didn't George Daly and Farrell play? If they're fit, they should have played, because that's at least a game they could have played. That was like, admittedly, it wouldn't have been intense, but they got to play. I don't know who said it, and a quote unquote, but Billy Vunipola looked like he'd been in the pub. That was what someone had said. If the pubs are open, you know that he looks so out of shape. And then you look at the players at the weekend in the England 8 berth that were running. Sam Simmons, admittedly, wasn't at his best against Exeter, still carried more. Dombrandt scored again. Like, that's 2, and we've barely started. I don't know. The Saracens, like, I mean, Marrow's because Marrow's a genius. But you look at Cowan-Dickie.
Billy's had a baby not long ago, hasn't he? And I know that somebody who I was watching the rugby with, the Sarries fan, has commented that since he's had the baby, he's not been the same. I'm not sure whether that comes into it. Sleepless nights, different priorities. Not sure, but shouldn't affect his play really.
Yeah, who obviously absolutely no idea. He does always look quite sluggish on the pitch. He's not fast. He never makes any line.
I know that, but
it's not his it's not his role to look anything other than absolutely massive. So it's difficult to judge him on that criteria. But yeah, didn't look good. Wonder if they'll move it around. I'd quite like Wilson, Curry,
Earl. Give me that. Give me that.
Yeah.
At least you're picking someone on form. Like Ben Earl's been killing people for Bristol. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. Just pick someone on form. Like my point is, and we'll get to Italy, France later, but to make the point, I had to go to Italy. Yeah, Franco Smith went, I'm going to pick the best Italian players on form. They lost, but he picked them on form. France, right, Intermac's injured. Oh, well, we could go back to Lopez because he's got 50, 60 caps. No, we'll pick a 24-year-old who's got 5 try assists in 3 games, who's got 10 line breaks in 5 games. Because he's 23, so he plays. That's simple. They pick on form. Like Wales, they tried Elias at hooker in the autumn. Didn't work. They go back to Ken Owens. He's the best hooker. He might not make it to the World Cup, but he's on form. You pick him. Marcus Smith is carving up in the Premiership. He's probably the main reason where Quins are where they are. We're playing Italy. Play him. Because that's what every other country would do. Australia, they play Noah Lolosio. He's 20. Is he there yet? No. But he's had a go. France, again, you've got bloody Carbonell on the bench. He's 22. You've got Garbisi, who's under 25. Scotland picked fucking Cameron Redpath at 12. Who was in the England squad like 2 years ago. He's only 12. Like, come on. They've picked him on form. Pick people on form. Ben Youngs isn't on form. Anthony Watson hasn't scored a try. Johnny May scored 1 try this season, and it was from 2 meters. Not on form. Daly, not on form. Slade, form, picked. Lawrence, carving up. 1 carry. 1 carry. It's a joke.
So, a few things. Like, Johnny May doesn't have form. He played badly in this game, yeah, but he's too good.
I wouldn't drop May. I generally wouldn't drop May. I'd drop Watson.
Also, Ben Youngs was, I thought, basically England's best player, because the pack was sort of as competent as they ever are, and any backline impetus we ever had was from Youngs. It all died as soon as he gave the ball to Farrell, but his runs and his basically speed, weirdly, I think was one of the only things that we did quite well. And then when Robson came on, he was not good. So Youngs is staying.
Bring Randall on the bench then, because again, he's on form. Is he the answer? No, because he still makes random decisions. He still kicks the ball out on the full. But Italy started the 3rd choice Gloucester scrum half, who's quality.
He's also 19.
He is quality. Like, quality. BBC commentators, of course, I didn't know, or the ITV guys didn't have a clue who he was, but quality player. They pick him on form. Get him in. Yes, they lost by 50 points. But he's going to be, if Stephen Varney's the Italy scrum half for the next 10 years until he's 29, he's going to be one hell of a player.
Yeah, nobody will remember this game.
50-point loss to France. Randall, we're playing Italy next week. Oh, there's a part of me that would love Italy to win, because then that would mean Jones would get fired. No, joke. But
there's absolutely no way Jones gets fired.
I just think we've got to change it up. It's just, you can't butcher a 7-on-3. You can't butcher a 6-on-4. You can't have a mindset of international rugby where no one at international level goes, all right, we're in our own half. We're going to play 3 phase and kick. Ireland did 17 phases yesterday, didn't go anywhere, and then kicked. And then they turned the line out over from the resulting thing. It's just like, I'm not going to come on here. People are going to be like, oh, Farrell's past it, blah, 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 blah. He's not. He's just not on form, so don't pick him. I don't care if he's the captain. There's plenty of other captains. They keep chatting about Marrow. Well, make Marrow the captain. See if he's any good. If he's not a problem. Someone else can be the captain. Doesn't matter. They're 23 blokes who can get themselves up for a game.
One of the weird things about the Six Nations, where because it's such a big deal in and of itself, for the teams who, well, basically for England and Ireland usually, it's every fixture, because the Six Nations is half the fixtures these teams play all year, and three of the other five are against Australia, South Africa and New Zealand. So you can't do anything interesting in those games. And then you have to win the Six Nations, or you have to do everything you possibly can to win the Six Nations. So hence you get this situation where Johnny Sexton has played started every game at 10 for Ireland since O'Gara retired, because basically every game is a must win. So they have to pick their best player. And then similarly with England, because in theory, not really even in theory, this is one of the most talented England teams that certainly anyone our age has ever seen. And most people think it's the best since the 2003 team. They have to treat it like literally every game is England's to lose, or at least pick a team that should win every game. There's never any room for trying something different. You just have to pick the team that's going to win, or do everything you can to win this game, not a game in 5 years' time, which is obviously a luxury that Italy have, because what have they got to lose? But France are picking like that at the moment because they're picking to win the World Cup in 2023, completely logically, because it's in France. And it's obviously England are basically doing that, but now is the time to find out that if Owen Farrell gets injured in the first game of the World Cup, now is the time to find out what you do.
Yeah.
Not that day, not that evening when Eddie Jones sits down at the table and think, with whoever's left of his assistant coaches, and thinks, oh shit, we haven't tried anything else. They've got to do it at some point.
I'll propose. I put together a starting 15 for Italy. These are generally how I generally think should start, and you can disagree with me. Some of them you'll get to number 5 and you'll generally raise your eyebrow, but there's some really good rationale for number 5. So I'd go Genge, Cowan-Dickie, and Stewart, because at the moment there's not a lot else. Williams and Stewart are interchangeable for me. Atoje for and make captain. Now this is my first surprise. He's not in the squad yet, so someone's getting kicked out. Dave Atwood. He's the best second row. He's the best English second row at the moment. He's quality at the moment.
Do you remember what I just said?
But he might make it. Look at Alwyn Jones.
He'll be a qualified barrister by the time the next World Cup comes around.
I like Dave Atwood. Sorry, Dave.
I love him. He might be my favourite player at the moment.
Then I had...
Yeah.
I can't remember what I had. Then I had Jack Willis at 6, Curry, Benno, Youngs, Smith, Adogwu on the left wing, Lawrence, Slade, May, Mailings.
Okay. So sort of do these one at a time. Highest profile to lowest profile. Do we need to pick Marcus Smith? Because George Ford is Marcus Smith, but better.
And more established.
Yeah.
And already in the squad.
Yeah, but Marcus Smith, but basically our French Matteo Jalibert.
No, that's George Ford.
Is he?
Yeah.
That is such a disrespect to Matteo. I'm sorry, Matteo. You are not George Ford.
He's so good.
Matteo Jalibert is so much better than George Ford.
He's a bit faster, but playmaking, Ford is really good. Like you and I both know this Leicester team, how terrible they are without him, and how actually genuinely good they are with him. He can do that to England. Like that 7-on-2, no matter how many times Eddie Jones has beaten him in training for passing rather than kicking. If George Ford looks up and takes a 7-on-2, there's absolutely no way he's going to kick it.
I think he probably, though I would pick Smith, and I will stand by Marcus Smith, because he is Matteo Jalibert in disguise. And he's the future. I reckon he will start Ford at 10 against Italy.
I hope so. At the same time, play Farrell, let him get into form.
He can do what he wants. He's probably going to go back to Ford. He's going to go back to Ford Farrell, isn't he? He's going to do that, isn't he? He's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to drop Ollie Lawrence out of the whole 23. He'll be back to Worcester. We won't see Ollie Lawrence again. That could happen.
Nah, Ford Farrell Lawrence, I think. That's most likely. Please. And then back three will stay the same.
Oh, come on. Where's Paolo?
No, I don't want it to. But I just think
get Paolo in, please.
Has to be on the bench.
Mate, I want to see. I want to see Paolo Dogu versus Ione in a foot race. That's what I want to see. That's the only battle I want to see next weekend. I didn't realise his uncle is Digby Ione until the other day.
The Italian winger.
Yeah. Fun fact. Anyone else think we done with England? Some Scots.
On the back row, I think if you're not going to pick Vunipola, you need to pick Wilson. And I'm not sure how fit Willis is.
I don't think Wilson needs to play against Italy.
Yeah, but think of the damage he would do. Their pack is so young.
Who can do that against a...
So different. Such a different threat. I will again obviously going to beat them, but Wilson's
don't know.
He's so funny.
Could you imagine if they win?
I actually want that to happen.
It'd be fantastic. But it won't happen because England will be fired up, and I think we'll be 30 points up by after half an hour. But should we praise some Scots? Because Scotland are very good. I reckon they'll come second in the Six Nations at the moment. I think they're pretty good.
Weird how Scotland-Wales is now the big game.
Oh, yeah. Is that next week?
Yeah.
Oh, well, if they win next week, they're second because they'll beat Italy and they'll lose to France. Oh, they've got to beat Ireland as well, actually. Good point. They've got to beat Ireland as well. Van der Merwe is going to be in the Lions, isn't he? On this form.
Yeah, if not this one, definitely the next one.
Because he looks bloody good.
Yeah.
Anyone else you picked out that, apart from the obvious? I mean, Stuart Hogg was brilliant, but again, Stuart Hogg. Finn Russell was good, apart from thought he was playing for football. Interesting, there was a stat about Owen Farrell had more touches than him in the game. Which is interesting. It sort of shows up how England were poor.
Yeah, and also fly half compared to 15.
No, Russell had less touches than Farrell. Sorry.
Oh, all right.
It was quite. I'm just looking at this. BBC Sport have got this the wrong way around. It's quite funny. Gary Graham apparently came on for Ferguson, the tight prop, but obviously it's WP now. But
no, it's Matt Ferguson, the number 8. His brother.
But it was good to see Richie Gray back into the Scotland shirt. I thought he looked quite good when he came on for his 14.
So actually, I've got a bit of. I don't know if you guys have noticed this about the Scotland scrum. It's a big, not quite bugbear because it's a good thing, but a sort of favourite topic of Alex Corbisiero where there's a new sort of slowly developing scrummaging technique for second rows and number 8, where rather than you having, so let's imagine I'm the tight head lock. So on the right hand side, I've got my right arm between the prop's legs, my left arm over the other second row. That stays the same. So for the second rows, that stays the same. But then the number 8, where usually the sort of usual technique is either a sort of slingshot thing or starting bound, but with your legs close.
Yeah.
What teams are starting to do, and particularly on their defensive scrum, because it's so much more solid and there's not so much of a like active forward push, it's just a hold and be stronger and be lower. They start both second rows on their knees, and then the number 8 with his arms through the second row's legs, like the second rows have on the props. And then the 8 also starts on his knees. And then the whole scrum, when they go to set, the whole scrum just sort of pops up onto its toes. And then everybody is super low, because you've just gone from having your knees on the ground to having your knees 6 inches off the ground. And everyone is low and tight already, and you're not going anywhere. And that's one of the reasons that the Scotland scrum was so good this weekend. I've explained that very well. It's much easier to demonstrate on a scrummaging machine. But yeah, a bit of scrum nerd stuff, which I think more teams will start to use. It's a good one to keep an eye out for on the overhead spider cams. Look at where the number 8's arms are. They'll either be underneath or out wide. You look at Corbusiero's Twitter account, he's got a good breakdown of it.
I would just say very quickly on Scotland, just as I say, massive kudos to them again. Everyone was very praised and they were very, very good. I will just use this momentum, Scotland. Like, you're not going to win the Six Nations. That is not realistic, because France are going to win it. And if anyone thinks differently, fine, but that's your choice. But you cannot argue with what we saw on Saturday. But take that, if Scotland got second, I can't remember in my lifetime that Scotland have ever finished second. I can't think back to a time in my lifetime, certainly not. So please please go beat Wales next week, because you're better than Wales on the form from the game we got yesterday. Yes, you can beat Ireland if you play like that you did against England. Yes, you'll beat Italy. You won't beat France, because France are on a different planet, but the second place for Scotland would be bloody good. So please don't do what you've done in the past, which is beat England and then finish 4th, because you lose to Italy or Wales or something like that. So
it's the Wales and the Ireland games that are key for them. And you wonder if maybe they'll find it slightly harder to get up for / the fatigue of the tournament means that later on they won't be able to perform quite as well as they did in this first game. But I'd love it. They're a good team, coached well.
Yeah,
got some fun players, got some hard players, good at a lot of different things.
Yeah, they provide a different entity in a way of they don't just play rugby the same way. Two teams that were kind of playing the same way, and that's why they kind of cancel each other out. And really, it was the red card in the end that made a bit of a difference, or that Louis Rees-Zammit is the quickest player in the entire world over 10 meters. Just very quick on that try, unbelievable finish. But who in a defensive system? What the hell is Ty Furlong doing? Where on earth in the defensive system is that? Right, we need to. Ty, you're going to be defending, you're covering defence. That's a massive flaw in your defensive system. Fair play to Ty Furlong, because I don't know how the hell he's got out there, but you shouldn't have your tight head prop going up against the quickest kid for that try.
Yeah. He's been injured for it a while, and I think
he's only just come back. It's his first game, I think.
Yeah.
He's about 9 months he's been out with a ACL. I want to say he's ACL. I think he's been out with his ACL.
something more
Something
structural than ACL, I think. But yeah, no, quite bad. Sharpness, fitness, form. He'll still go on the. He'll still be on the plane for the Lions.
Oh, 100%.
Bus, wherever they end up
Whatever
going.
it is.
Zoom on the ship. But yeah.
I'll throw some names out there, see what you think. James Lowe was good. He probably should have tried to get on the ball a bit more, but again, he looked very good. I thought Robbie Henshaw was brilliant in that game, I have to say. And he slimmed down. He's lost a bit of weight, but his change of direction for the Burn try was absolutely superb. I thought he was very, very good. Hugo Keenan as well, stamping the 15 shirt down. I thought he was pretty good, pretty solid game. Apart from that,
Henshaw is the form 12 for the Lions, I think.
Yeah, 100% at the moment. I don't see anyone else really displacing that.
Depends how you want to play, but he's really good.
I mean, we've got to talk about it, but Peter. Thomas Francis he's not even in the ruck. I mean, he's in the ruck, but he's not doing. He can't do anything. Why are you flying in on? Why are you flying in off your feet? Why have you tucked your arm in? Come on.
Yeah, the thing that got me with that is if you take Thomas Francis out of the equation, say Thomas Francis isn't there, his arm still hits Tipuric on the head. Like it's he's just got it all wrong.
Oh, it's 2021. Stop hitting people in the head. It's not hard, is it? Don't fly. First of all, there's so much. As I say, you put it there perfectly, Tricky. There's so much wrong with it. So much wrong with it.
Yeah,
a bit too old now.
And that killed the game, really. Well, two things.
It was good though. It didn't kill the game at all.
No. Sorry, no. My point was there was two other things that killed the game. Sorry, go on. If we have a brief digression into head injury chat, there were a lot of head impacts in this game. Yeah. Lots of HIAs. Obviously, the Peter O'Mahony one, around which it's very nice that there was absolutely no debate. Like, nobody who has any serious interest in rugby thinks that shouldn't have been a red card, and like that's a good thing. So, well done, World Rugby. We're getting well done, Wayne Barnes.
And we're getting closer to the day when generally impacts to the head just don't happen, because the more red cards there are in these high-profile games, the more careful people will be in the future. The citing, whether or not it happens, for the Johnny Williams tackle and the sort of breakdown of how they're going to assess that is going to be interesting. There's been a bit of debate between a few of the rugby sort of lawyers who represent people at these rugby disciplinary panels. So a bit of debate between them on Twitter today about the level of indirectness for whether he hitting him on the body and then his head hitting him in the head, is that sufficiently indirect, or is it hit on the body and ride up? Is that indirect? Like that. So there's a definition thing here that is going to set a precedent, which could be quite interesting if you are a bit boring like me. Or if you are particularly also like me, the rugby player, particularly worried about the refereeing of high tackles, because I'm not as good at that as I would like to be. But yeah, like players need to be more careful than O'Mahony was there, and they are increasingly. But that was crap.
Yeah, that was pretty poor. I was trying to think. But poor old Sexton, he got hit, didn't he? And then, that was a complete fluke. He just ran into, I think it was Tipuric's knee. He missed touch. Oh, Billy Burns, he ain't going to be in the 23 next week.
Thank you.
That is like,
I don't think he's going to be there.
You've only got 7 forwards. you need to give yourself the absolute best chance of scoring this rolling maul. You've got to go for it. You've got to go for it.
I think you got to hit.
You also can't pick a guy just because of one. I know it's a big mistake. One mistake that he's made.
Yeah,
it would be 2023.
I mean, obviously, he's not one mistake away from being dropped, but he's a bit closer to being dropped than Johnny Sexton is. But yeah, no, they haven't got anyone else.
Well, they do.
They're not picking in Johnny.
Paddy Jackson.
No,
he's never going to get picked because we need him to win. We're going to win the Premiership, so we need Paddy Jackson fit and firing. So no, Andy, you cannot have Paddy. But he would have most certainly made touch. So less about Paddy, because the more we talk about him, obviously we have so much influence over the world. He'll get picked. But they're talking about Harry Byrne, Ross Byrne's younger brother, who's meant to be very good. No, I'm on all joking aside. Billy Burns will be fine. Obviously a bit gutted, but yeah, a missed opportunity for Ireland. Really, they might be technically the better team there. But
in terms of missed opportunities, can we talk a bit more about Gareth Davies' decision to kick it with 5 seconds left on the clock? I never understand it. It annoys me every single time a player does this. Even when there's 2 minutes left on the clock kicking away, just run the clock down. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. But 5 seconds left on the clock, and then they go and give Ireland the possession and nearly lose the game.
Yeah,
it's mind-blowing.
Pivac nearly must have had a heart attack. He's like, I'm going to win. I'm going to win a game that's not Georgia or Italy. Oh, dear.
All he had to do was either go down himself or just give the ball to somebody else to go down directly onto the floor, get to the ruck, kick it out. That's all he needs to do. It's just bizarre.
Before someone else tries it, I do want to personally apologise. I think I need to probably apologise to Harry more than anyone else, because I think when we did our Lions pod or prediction for the Lions, I wanted Tom Curry at 7. I definitely I've made a really bad decision there, because Justin Tipperick is the best open side flanker in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment. He is so good. And I forgot how good he was. And yeah, so he starts the Lions, and someone else who's going to go as well. I feel so sorry for Dan Lydia, because again, it's another knee injury, which is a bit gutting. But Josh Navidi's a freak.
I have absolutely no idea why you would start at this point. Why you would start Lydia over Navidi?
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah,
that Welsh backline is bloody lovely. I mean, it could even be the Lions backline, to be honest, back row.
Well, and I mean, he's not a Lions contender, but Ellis Jenkins is back playing now as well, which is good. Good for them.
Yeah, go on.
Just brief. You were talking about Lions back row. CJ Stander's still quite good.
He's good, isn't he? Oh, he's going to look lovely in that maroon.
What, the training kit?
No, the Bordeaux maroon kit.
Oh, yeah, no, pretty. Scott Higginbotham, CJ Stander, Cameron Wokey. That's
Diaby. What about Diaby?
Oh wow, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
Oh, please. I can't. I genuinely. This isn't very poddy related, but people just have to bear with it. I can't wait for us to go out to Bordeaux and watch Bordeaux play. I can't wait. So as soon as that's legal and we don't have to travel with a passport that says I've had a vaccine, please can we go to Bordeaux? Just watch them rugby. Well,
I'll see you there.
Wasn't in the Welsh squad because he punched the King of Wales in the face in training. Straight ball. Did you hear about this?
To be clear, did he punch him? I thought it was just a stray elbow or something.
Apparently he punched him. They had a ruckus. I don't know. Well, that's the sources. But I like to think that he punched him.
Well, he did then get run over by Stander in the game. So Wyn Jones has not had it, or Jones rather, has not had a great week.
What has he put? How is he still going? What has he made out of at this point?
So actually, interesting conversation that. In the week where obviously Tom Brady wins another Super Bowl, I think we're coming into an era where, or at least we're in an era where elite athletes just do go longer. The highest level, they just do go a lot longer than we've ever seen them before. Like Ibrahimovic is 38, and he's the second or third top scorer in the Italian and Serie A at the moment. I think, obviously, Joe knows a lot more about this than I do, but I don't think 35 is not that old for a second row.
But I'm just on Ibrahimovic. We were talking about FIFA 13 earlier. He's 30 on FIFA 13. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. Nuts. I bet he's still like 85. I'm just looking at how old Johnny Wilkinson is on your Tom Brady point. He's 41. So Johnny Wilkinson, get out of retirement, put your boots on, lad, and off you go. I still reckon I genuinely think we could beat Italy with Wilkinson at fly half. How good would that be? Oh dear.
I would love a Toby Flood redemption arc.
That lad's playing well. If anyone, who was at the weekend? Oh no, it wasn't. That was Capu who put it for his legs. It was quite funny. Reece Summit scored though for Wales, which is good. Not his first try though. I think he might have scored before then.
No, but yeah, he'll play as much as he deserves to. I think they've got a few wingers, but he deserves to be in the 23 most weeks. North played well.
Yeah, North was good at 13. Johnny Williams was good at 12 before he went off. Wales looked much better. I think obviously Wyn Jones got man of the match, but Ken Owens made a real difference for them. And Thomas Francis weirdly plays so well at Wales. He doesn't particularly always do it for Exeter because he's always on the bench for Exeter, but he's particularly good for Wales. Much better from Wales. Ireland, maybe get 15 players on the pitch and you'll be all right next week. But they're playing France, aren't they? I think they're playing France. Oh, no, yes, they are playing France.
I can't remember.
Yeah, they're playing France because it's Scotland, Wales. So good. I'm looking forward to it. On France, very good. Is all I can say. I see Bryce Doolan picking 27 still. I mean, he's not old, but because Bryce Doolan came on the scene when he was about 10. That try was lovely. Obviously, Anton Dupont is the man at the moment. That Fiku try.
Just ridiculous.
That's flipping insanity.
You think he knows he's there? Or do you think he just chucks it and just wants to see what will happen?
That's just remarkable.
Genius. Absolute genius.
And also it's coaching and time playing together.
Yeah.
Because Fiku's also at Toulouse, isn't he? And the communication.
No, Fiku's at Stade Francais, mate.
Is he really?
Yeah. He was at Toulouse and he moved. You can go check, but I swear he's at Stade Francais now because I was surprised by that myself.
Yes, no, 2 years ago.
But they would have played together I think Dupont would have burst on the scene.
Yes. But yeah, no, so they're a fantastic team with this core of Toulouse players, and then everybody else is also brilliant. It's really nice.
Yeah, as I say, the only change I make to France, because I'm biased, is get Cameron Wokey on the bench.
Yeah.
Please. I don't know a lot about Geelong, but I mean, any time we've always, like France, about 5 years ago, France were very average. But as I say, we said this before, but all of a sudden, the players they've just managed to go on, poof, amazing. Absolutely amazing talent pool. Great tries.
How long ago was it they won the under-20s World Cup? Probably a couple of years ago now. It's probably
they won the last one that was held.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
So there must be a couple coming through from that squad.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of them, I think. Well, Dupont.
The next terrifying one is Jordan Joseph, the number 8.
Oh.
I think will be 19 this year. Maybe.
I forgot about him.
He's at Racing. He's 20 this year. We've seen a lot less of him because there's been obviously no under-20s World Cup last year or this year. So we would have had another round of highlights for him.
Yeah.
I don't know how many games he's played for Racing. I watched him play 20 games. He's played a few. I don't think it's probably a bit early for him to be picked for the actual full national team, but he's on his way.
Oh, he's going to be good. But yeah, Wokey, please. That would I say. Italy. I'm positive. I really like, as I said before, I really like Franco Smith picking players on form. Garbisi's quite good. Varney's good, but I'm going to come out and defend Italy here. What do you expect from them? Sam Walton's like, get him out. A lot of players like, get him out. But what do you expect from them? Like, they are not going to develop more than that, and that's fine. That is fine. Can people just leave them alone? Like, I was saying this earlier to people, right? Argentina got in the Rugby Championship, were a lot better, primarily because Argentina have naturally got very good big people. Look at their forward pack at the moment, and they've got very, very, very good players. Italy, they'd have one player that would make the world 15, and that would be Parise. Like an all-time great would be Parise, right?
And even that's quite generous.
And that is just
let's be honest.
And that is tight with Kieran Reid and etc.
Yeah.
That's another thing about. But like, what do you expect from them? Like, I agree. I think there should be a promotion relegation between them and Georgia. But you're not going to expect much from Georgia because we saw in the autumn Georgia get battered by people. But so you either go, for me, let them have a playoff, which Italy will probably win because they've done that in the past, or have the opportunity for development. But realistically, Italy are not going to get better than they are because they would have done so by now.
Yeah, I think the big argument for this is there isn't really a better alternative. Georgia will be the same, if not perhaps slightly worse, and logistics around that in terms of travel, transport, and the history side of it as well makes it a bit murky. Whereas Italy are part of this competition, have been for years, and if anything, it's only beneficial for them. So what's the point of getting rid of them just because, and there's no shame in having a rest week. I think it makes the tournament a bit more exciting, if anything. It's just people wanting to create some controversy, I think.
Yeah, completely agree.
Clickbait, isn't it?
Not worth talking about. Georgia are like significantly worse. Wales would put 60 points on them every week. Every time they played, it would be pointless. Having a playoff would just cause more insecurity for the Italian RFU, which would mean they would have to be like less confident in investing money, which we don't want them. We want them investing every penny that they get from the Six Nations in the year that they get it, so that they can get better, which they are. Like, Paul Gattard is going to coach an Italian team. Like they're attracting the highest level of coaches. It can only be so long until they get very serious.
And they're getting a high caliber of better players. Like, as I say, Garbisi's really good. Ione is very, very fast. Varney is still 19. You have to remember he looked very competent against the best 9 in the world. Sperandio that try was lovely. Bit of Italian flair and magic. But again, you've got people bashing them like they've lost by 50 points. But flipping heck, look at the French team. That French team's beaten most teams in this competition by... They'll score points, is what I'm going to make the point of. Yeah, they won't be by that margin. But what do you expect, to be honest? Like, that French team's ridiculous. So...
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, again, you've got David Cece's playing in the second row. I'm not going to bash David Cece. Fair play to him. But he was in the London. He didn't even make it near the London Irish starting first team when he was at London Irish, and he barely made the Bath team. So he wasn't even playing like week in, week out Premiership rugby, and he's playing international rugby. So I think it's unfair to keep bashing him. They are what they are.
Yeah.
France are flipping good. Give the French more credit than they might have picked up from, but France to win next week. That's what I'm going to say.
That's probably likely.
One last point before we go, or unless anyone else has any OOB. Ealing in the Premiership. They're beating Saracens again. Saracens shouldn't be in the Premiership because they lost to again. No jokes.
In all seriousness, though, it's a bit worrying. We all thought this Saracens, what's left of it, squad would be better than it is. Like, it's a little bit surprising. Obviously, like most of those players are, to a greater or lesser extent, just championship quality players, but championship quality players with Premiership winning coaches, you'd have thought would be doing a bit better. Maybe, obviously, they lose a lot by not having all the England guys, but Brad Barrett's gone now, Wrigglesworth's gone now. It's a very different team.
I'm going to try and bring up. They did have a few academy lads in there. I'm not going to hide away from that point, but I don't know if you've seen as well. London Scottish have pulled out of the Championship this year.
Not surprised.
But they are going to return apparently in the year after.
Yeah.
So
but they've all had their funding cut, haven't they? Completely.
So
yeah, they were given money by the government, and then not quite clear whether it was made, whether they were told beforehand or afterwards that this money they were given was a loan rather than a grant, and so they'll have to pay that back at some point. And just to run the season, they have to have regular COVID tests, which they've estimated is going to cost each team about £150,000 for the course of the season. So they basically the choice is spend this government money on testing and play, or pay the money back and don't have your club saddled with all this debt and don't play. I know Amptil had a sort of effectively a GoFundMe crowdfunding thing, but it seems like Saracens are picking up the slack for them. Like this right now is the opportunity for a Premiership club to be generous and basically buy a Championship club as a feeder team. And I suspect there's been a bit of that behind closed doors. Like, so for example, with Northampton, their academy is going to be Bedford's team this year. I suspect Northampton are paying for that.
Yeah.
Because of all the professional sports teams in the world, the English Premiership has had the least economic impact of everybody, because the government just gave them all the money they would have lost a couple of months ago. So the Premiership teams are in no different financial situation as they would have been in normal times. So they can afford to help out these Championship teams, hopefully.
Especially seeing as attendance and crowds are so poor normally anyway, not losing a huge amount.
Yeah, it's not making a big difference.
I'm just trying to see if there's any big transfers of the week. I think it was relatively quiet last week.
James Hansen left Gloucester.
Oh yeah, you've signed Pablo Cecchino, not Pablo. Was it Pablo?
Yeah.
The young
Pablo Cecchino, the hooker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that happened on the same day. They announced Hansen leaving and Cecchino arriving. I quite like James Hansen. He was quite handy, but I'm not sure why he's left. But I think it was, I just don't know. Don't think he was getting on at the club, or I think he had some injury troubles as well. But yeah, we'll see how Cecchino gets on. Well,
the Blues have won Super Rugby Aotearoa before it started with Thingamajig signing for them. I've just forgotten his name though, but that was announced last week.
That's for next year, don't you?
Oh.
He's finishing this season in league and then joining in 2022.
Well, the New Zealanders were talking about he bloody signed for them.
It's still quite a big deal.
I don't worry, my beloved Crusaders will win the title then, no worries. I'll relax. I was getting a bit worried when you put that in the chat when I was doing my shop on Friday that he was there.
No. Although speaking of Super Rugby this year, not clear whether it has a TV deal in the UK yet, which I'm slightly concerned at.
That's annoying.
Mm.
So we'll need to keep an eye on that.
Oh,
But I'm sure something will be worked out. It's actually quite popular.
Mm.
Obviously, for years they put those games on at 8 o'clock in the morning our time, which was very unpopular in New Zealand and Australia. They put those games on at those times so that Sky UK could show them, and they hated it for the decade that they've done that. So it was obviously worth something.
Yeah, but realistically, the people that are going to watch that though are people like us that love rugby. And what do? We just stick it on record if we've got that ability to do that.
Well, yeah, well, I would watch it live. I watch those games live. I love having it in the morning.
Yeah.
And
No, but I'm saying that if they were at 4 a.m, I would still record them and get up at 8 o'clock and watch it or watch on repeat or whatever.
Possibly you would. I probably wouldn't. For example, I really don't like watching sport not live. I've found the result by then, so it's difficult. So I suspect it's probably a sort of equal distribution of people like you and people like me, but it's worth it to get every viewer they can, I think, because otherwise, what are Sky going to be showing at 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday?
Yeah, I was going to say
on a Friday evening. Who's going to tune in? Other than me, who's me watching Super Rugby? Who's going to be watching Sky on a Friday morning?
I hope they do get that sort because I'd like especially Aotearoa. I can cope with maybe not seeing Super Rugby AU, but
yeah. Well, fingers crossed. I'm sure they'll sort something out because it's going to be a good tournament.
Right, well, there then. We'll see you next week for some more rugby chat. Keep safe and enjoy. Hope you don't get snowed in.
No danger of that.